So, we're all done with the drying process. It's all dry, it's all in place. And so now our next step is to put some grit on it and some paint surrounding the whole thing. So the first thing you're going to need is a giant popsicle stick or a regular popsicle stick. And I use something called Vallejo Earth Texture. It's the color. The name of the color is Brown Earth, and it's Diorama Effects. It's a nice big tub. It's about $7-8. Real easy to find, and I find that it adds grit, and you don't even need the primer before you put it down. So we're just going to grab a little bit or a lot from our popsicle stick and spread it out on our CD here liberally. So don't worry about putting too much. It will dry and shrink significantly to where the grit is really showing, and you want to just move the stuff around like as if it were like a putty or something along those lines, and just being careful. Don't put too much up against the sandbags, but just push it into the cracks and crevices and everywhere you think you need the grit at. Honestly, you don't need it all over the place, but I usually put it everywhere there, because what's going to happen is once I finish putting all the implements on this, I'm going to give it an overall priming with spray paint. It's an ultra flat camouflage spray paint. I'll probably show you at the end of this video. So I'm just going to spread it out evenly, trying to hide that cardboard as best as I can that I glued in the center. Yeah, so there you go. So I'm just kind of being real careful, spreading it out as best I can. And I make sure that I cover the whole CD, but before I carry on, I'm going to use just a throwaway brush to get all the special parts. You could start with a brush. You don't have to use the popsicle stick. Actually, I use the popsicle stick just to kind of scoop it on there. And then I move to a brush. Just a real crappy brush that you don't care about. Just spread it very evenly, carefully at first, and then you can rough it up later or add some even with the brush, or even do a second coat. So I'm going to carry on here, getting around all the sandbags and the boxes, just kind of trying to get more on my brush there. It's taking it from the middle. There we go. Just spread this all throughout. It's actually a pretty easy process. And this stuff dries really nicely. Sometimes you need a second coat of the stuff, especially if you want a super rough surface. All right, so now that we have got a dry layer, I forgot to hit the record button, but it's been about 24 hours, and I let this completely dry. And as you can see, it's completely dry in most of the areas. It was all around. And I hit this center part with some more of that same texture stuff, the diorama effects, the brown earth stuff. I hit it with some more in the center because when the paint shrinks, you can see that little card in the center. That's why I probably would recommend you use something like a thinner card, or even just a real thin piece of paper, even over the piece of cardboard like this. You could use a real thin piece of paper, and that would do just fine. It would harden up. It would do it'd be no problem. So now now that I got this all worked out, as you can see, there's two spots here. That's where I put my wheels in, and it came up, and as you can see, it made a little bump. So I'm gonna roughen that up. So there we go. So we're going to kind of roughen the surface up, give it a little bit more texture, kind of like with what I did with the stuff around there. So this will give it a little bit more depth. So I'm going to rinse my brush off and show you guys what I'm about to do next. Okay, so now that we've got that down, really all we have to do is wait for this part to dry, and then we can carry on with our base. But before we do that, I'm going to add a little bit more dimension to this piece. Just give it something just a little bit extra to look at, and more 3D, 3D like. I'm going to put a dead tree over here. Now to do this, I used wire. And there's tons and tons of tutorials out there on how to make wire apertures. They're real simple. You take quite a few, you break them off into fours, you twist it into a trunk, and then you split off the branches as you go up. So that's what I did here. And I will be doing a tutorial on how I did this some other time. So if you're watching this, go look in my playlist. If it's not there, it's coming soon. So this is going to be a dead, war-torn tree. I'm not going to have any leaves on it. It's just going to be dead. And as you can see all the wires. And then you can see this clear, somewhat yellowish type material on it. What that is Woodland Scenic's latex rubber. So I'll zoom out here. We're going to glue this onto the base, and I did this part already with the latex rubber. The part that's going to contact the base with the glue I left bare because the metal I think will stick better, and we're going to cover this up with our same texture later on. So first things first, I'm going to glue this on here. If I can get my cap off. There we go. Cap off. All right. So we're going to put some glue there. And then we're going to set this tree down right over here where I've pre-planned it off to the side. Let me see. There we go. And this way, being over there, it's not going to impede with me. Oh, I got to pick up my glue. Putting this in here, or even putting miniatures around it. So, all right. So I'm going to let this dry. I'm going to hold on to it, and I'm not going to let you suffer through that. And I'll be right back when it's finished. All right. Now our tree is officially glued in, and the glue is completely dry. So now we're going to use some of this texture to cover up the trunk of this tree, showing a little bit of the roots as if they're going in. And then we're going to take our latex rubber and we're going to finish off spreading it across our limbs. So let's get started with that. So next, we're going to take our latex rubber from Woodland Scenics, as you can see. You can create long-lasting molds, and you can actually you can use this for trees, and it actually fills in the lines there pretty well, as you saw from the tree. So really, all you need to do is take a little bit of it on your brush, a crappy brush, by the way. Don't use a new one. And we're going to start spreading this all over the limbs here. And you don't have to be insanely perfect with it. It dries in about 30 minutes. And it turns kind of like a clear yellow color. And they also recommend that you do about 3 layers, typically, if you're doing a mold. As far as a dead tree goes, it's just up to your discretion. If you think you need more on there, you need more. I typically do two coats of it. I do a heavy first coat on the bottom part, and I kind of sparingly do it up here because this is a war-torn tree, and it's going to have bumps and bruises and things like that. So we'll get anything that's not covered in the latex rubber, you just kind of hit it up with it. Really, all you're doing is filling the gaps, making it look like it's not, wire. I thought about putting some leaves right on the end, like it's trying to hang in there, but I'm going to make it look like it caught fire and all kinds of stuff. I think that would add a whole lot of story to the piece. We'll tell a story like it's been hit by artillery and mortar shells and stuff like that. Maybe a stolen position from the enemy that has sat here for a while, and now you took it over. Something along those lines. I mean, it's pretty much whatever you want it to be. You just add little details to it, and every little detail you have, you can tell a story. So that's why I'm doing this right now, is because I want a little bit more of a story out of my base. Just the base, rather than just a base and a few guys on it. So now this will dry in about 30 minutes. You just coat the whole thing, and when it's dry, you just cover it in whatever primer, or it doesn't even really have to be a primer. It takes paint really well. I'm going to be putting a really dark chocolate brown, or like a dark camouflage black brown by Vallejo all over it, and work my way up from there and then back down. So I'll paint it like a regular tree. I know it seems ridiculous. I'll paint it like a normal tree, a healthy tree, and then I'll damage it, quote unquote, damage it with dark tones and the smoke, Vallejo smoke. Just make it look like it caught fire and it's got ashes all over it where the tree limbs are. And maybe put a little green right on this limb right here. So there you go. That is covered. I'll just give it a good look over right here, spot. All right. So there is something you can always be doing while other things are drying, and this is one of them. Now, another thing you can do is you could do the same wire apertures with like bushes and things like that, but you need a much thinner wire to use with that. You don't want to use a real thick limb like this, but you can make with just little single wires. And when you put this latex rubber on that as well, another thing you can do is once this is all dry, because it's made out of wire, you can bend these limbs in any direction you want. And it becomes a bendable tree limb with this latex rubber. That's what I really like about it, is because it's still, you could just bend them in any direction. Like I could take this guy and bend it out with the latex rubber, and the rubber moves with it. So that's one of the main reasons why I use it, is because I can manipulate the trees any way I want, whenever I want. So there you go. That is all finished there. As you can see, it's covered in this stuff. And I'll be back when this is dry to show you guys what it looks like. Heck, it almost looks good right now. Could be a winter tree. Or an ash tree of some kind. A white ash tree. So, all right, I'll be right back to show you what it looks like when it's dry. All right, so that's the 30 minutes that it says it takes for this stuff to dry, which you saw all in fast forward. I had to sit through it and wait for it. But as you can see, most of it has dried. Not all of it, but most of it has dried. So I think you need about an hour's time and not 30 minutes. I guess it's depending on the thickness that you put on there. But as you can see, it is drying. Kind of a yellow clear on the thinner parts, like up here and stuff like that. So there you go. That's where it's at so far. I need to let the texture dry around the stump of the tree, and this part here fully. I need to let it dry fully, and let the tree dry fully itself. And once that is complete, all of that is complete, we are ready for our primer coat. So I'm going to spray this all in a it's going to be a dark brown. It's going to be, let's see, let me grab it right quick. This is a Krylon paint. It's ultra flat. It's like a real dark brown, camouflage, non-reflective Krylon paint. So it's actually super bond adhesion. So it's actually really good paint. It's for sporting goods too. It dries in about 15 minutes. That's great. That's awesome. That's what I'm going to be using, and I'm going to spray the whole entire thing. Now the sandbags are going to be a different color, but that's just going to be my primer coat for the resin and for the tree. So the sandbags will be painted individually, and so will the boxes. And we're going to add these to the ground and stuff like that before we spray on that paint. And then these will be primed as well, so I could paint those up on the base itself. So that's what we'll be doing next in part 3. That was part 2. Thanks for sticking with me, guys. I really appreciate it. If you haven't joined my Facebook group, please go over to Rocky's War Room group over there on Facebook. Ask to join, and I'll accept you. You can post whatever you want up on there, pictures of stuff that you guys are working on painting or anything like that. And if you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel, please do. I'd really appreciate that. Spread the word. Like this video. Leave me some comments. Tell me what you think of this piece, this diorama piece for my artillery. And last but not least, from me to you, ta-ta, and I'll catch you in my next video.